Hello again, friends. I'm Jill Gillespie, and today I want to talk about finding neutral, great posture when we're sitting, because I know we're at a place in history and culture that we just sit at our desks, at our computers all the time. And if you're anything like me, the way that you sit probably looks something like this. Which isn't great for our body and our spines. And so I guess the main issue is when we're sitting like this in our chair, the back of our body is constantly being stretched in one direction, and so our hamstrings are being stretched long, and we call this sitting inflection when our body is bending forward here, and so our spine, we're in spinal flexion because we're bending it forward. Our legs are always in this flexion of being bent forward all the time, and if you're especially somebody who sits like this or whatever, it's even more intense. And so we have to spend some time in not that shape, so we can support our backs and support our bodies, because if you think of it, it's like we're overstretched rubber band when we sit like this. And so if you want a rubber band to go back to normal, you don't keep stretching it, right? Like often we stretch like this or do our forward hangs, and we think that helps. And it does provide temporary relief. But a rubber band needs to come back. And so changing up how we sit and then using our core to support us is our work to bring our rubber band back to its neutral place, so it doesn't eventually snap, right? And so just some ideas on how you can do that. Again, you know your own body. I don't know your body. I'm sitting in my weird dining room right now. And so take any movement that I offer with caution, and definitely stop if it doesn't feel good on your body. But so the first thing we want to consider when we're sitting at our desks is keeping both of our feet rooted on the floor with the energy drawing into our heels, maybe ankles under knees, and then sitting forward in our chair. So we're not relying on the back for support here. And so once we have that initial setup in place, that already probably feels uncomfortable and different. But then we still have to deal with what's happening with our head and shoulders here. And so we can imagine finding a neutral place for our shoulders to live. And so we want to stack our shoulders right over our hips. And you can see if your shoulders are neutral or not by where your arm hangs on your body. And so a neutral position for your shoulders will be your arms just hanging right down at your hips, right down at your side. If you're still hunching them forward, your hands will actually come forward in front of your hips. And then if you're doing military chest, shoulders, then your arms will go back behind your hips. And so in the seated place, you kind of find that neutral stance where your arms hang just straight down your sides. And then once you've gotten yourself built up to your shoulders, then it's probable that your neck is still hanging more forward, even when you think that you're sitting upright. And so you can take your hand and just press your head back so you're actually aligning it, the back of your head and your spine just right on top of your spine, and then more in line with your shoulders, because usually we're like this. And it feels weird because you're like, but that's more what proper alignment and neutral alignment is like. And so once you have this foundation now where you're sitting up more straight, you can then engage your core. to help take the pressure off of your back to hold the shape. And so to start engaging your core, what I do is I draw my belly toward my spine and then imagine that I can bring it up and hook it into my rib cage. And that helps neutralize my pelvis, and it really keeps everything just kind of held in together rather than just pouring out. It builds some structure for me. And so that might already feel like a lot of work. And so that might be enough practice for you for now. When you're ready to keep moving, then we really start getting into how our breath moves. Because we want to be able to breathe deeply into the lower part of our torso and our belly and our core, and really get our abs to work and breathe so we're expanding outward and across our body when we breathe, and really just bring that there into our lower belly. And so you can bring your hands down there and actually feel and see if your stomach is moving and your sides are moving out as you breathe. And so just being able to hold that structure with your belly drawn in and sending that breath and support all the way down into your belly will feel like a lot of work. It'll feel really weird, but you're just making that more natural in your body, which is better for you than always just sitting like this all of the time. And so you can set a timer for yourself, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 times a day, just to go beep, beep, and then see if you need to reconnect with this foundation. Standing desks are a really cool thing that people use, which is fine. I have one at my office. The thing about standing desks, though, is if you're standing like this, you're still doing all of the things you're trying to avoid by using a standing desk if you're jutting your hips out. And so the same idea applies when you're standing as well. You root your feet into the floor under your hips. You draw that belly in, you bring your shoulders up and broad, stacked right over your hips. And then, so you can see my head, make sure that you're pushing that chin back. Your shoulders are in the middle. And so that's how you get into more neutral postures when you're just being still all the time. And this is a neutral foundation for how I teach my chair yoga classes too. So if you ever do chair yoga with me, we'll work on that kind of structural foundation building. And then another thing that can help relieve your legs is to just start actively sitting with your hips higher than your knees. So if you have somebody with knee stress, even when you're sitting on the floor, in yoga classes where they're like, sit on some height if the knees aren't comfortable. That can happen in a chair too. So if you have a pillow or a cushion, you can come to your desk and sit on that and reset up that foundation that we were just talking about. So now there's even less bending up here because you're sitting up higher. And then there's just less stress on your legs, around your knees, and all of that fun stuff too. So that is my practicing just sitting there video. Have a wonderful day.